Students, now it's the second part of this lesson, Nelson Mandela, Long Walk to Freedom. We have already read some part of the chapter in which we read about inaugural speech of Nelson Mandela when he was elected as the first president of democratic South Africa. Now he thanked all the leaders who were present on that occasion. He also mentioned all those people, all those freedom fighters who struggled hard for this great victory. And what he said that his country's real wealth are people, they are purest diamonds. And now what he had already promised that he would create such an environment in his country, he would follow all the rules of the constitution, that nobody would get deprived, nobody would be oppressed, and nobody would be denied of his rights. Now the next one it is given, it is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. It is from these comrades. He has already mentioned the names of all the freedom fighters, and he said these companions in the struggle made him learn the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. What he says that so many times he has seen people risking their life for a simple idea. Sometime even कि लोग अपनी जान की बाजी लगा देते हैं किसी भी आइडिया को, किसी भी चीज़ को पाने के लिए. I have seen men stand up to attack and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. And he says that he has seen so many people who stood up against attacks and tortures without breaking. They did not break down. Shows strength, shows courage and resilience. Resilience is what? That is the ability to deal with any kind of hardship and recover from its effect. Means they faced all the challenges bravely. That defies the imagination, that is beyond imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. Now, what he says that courage is not just the absence of fear. If you are not fearful, it is not courage. It does not mean to be courageous, but it is the actual courage is when you win over the fear. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. Actually, the real brave man is that who is not only afraid, but who conquers, who wins the fear, who overcomes the fear. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or his religion. Now, what he said that God has never sent anybody on this earth to hate others on the basis of their skin or their background or the religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. People, when they come on this earth, they learn to hate people, and if they can learn to hate people, they can learn to love also. And for love comes more naturally to the human hearts than its opposite. And people love comes naturally to the human heart than the hatred. So we should love each other. Even in the grimiest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second, but it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Now, even in the hardest times in the prison, when my companions and we were pushed to our limits means when they were pushed to the last point in our ability to bear pain, means they had to face hardships, even that crossed all the limits. in that time also, he saw a little sign of humanity in some of the guards, and perhaps just for a few seconds, but it was enough to reassure me. It was enough, it was sufficient to make me assured that I should keep going with that struggle, because everybody wanted it. Even the guards who were on duty, those who were putting us in prison, they also wanted the same, that we should get freedom. And man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. So man's goodness is just like a flame which can be hidden. It can be hidden for some time but can never be extinguished. उसको कभी बुझाया नहीं जा सकता है. So now the next one, it is given, in life every man has twin obligations. He says that all the human beings have two type of responsibilities. Obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children. He means he has obligations for his responsibilities for his family, his parents, his wife, and children. And second one, he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. That we have some responsibilities, we have to bear some duties of for our countrymen, for our people, for our community, for our country. In a civil and human society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclination and abilities. And now what he says, that in this civil and human society, in human society, each man is able to fulfill. He can fulfill all those duties according to his own interest, on natural tendencies of behavior and abilities. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of those obligations. But it is quite common, it is natural that we can fulfill those obligations in a country which is law abiding country. But in a country like South Africa, what he says, Nelson Mandela, that it was really very difficult for me to fulfill both the responsibilities. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. In South Africa, a black man, a man of color means black person who attempted to live as a human being, who wanted to live as a human being, who wanted to live as a natural human being, was punished and isolated. He was punished, he was isolated, he was separated. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duties to his people was inevitably ripped from his family and his home and was forced to live a life apart. And in South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people, who wanted to do something for his countrymen, was inevitably, unavoidably ripped from his family and his home. And he was forced to live in prison. He was taken away from his family and home, and he was put in prison. A twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion, and he was considered as a rebellious, and who was put behind the bars. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family. In the beginning, I loved my family. I wanted to keep my family first, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligation as a son, as a brother, as a father, and a husband. And what he said, that while attempting to serve my country, my people, I found that I could not fulfill my duties as a son, as a brother, father, and husband, but I had more responsibilities to get my country free. I was not born with hunger to be free. And he says, in my childhood, I did not understand that difference. I could not understand all that. I was born free because as a child, I was free. I could do what I wanted. Free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow moving bulls. And now what he said, he could do what he wanted. He could swim, he could roast the maize and grains, and he could ride the board backs of slow moving bulls. He could do anything he wanted because as a child there is no restriction. As long as I obeyed my father and abided by the customs of my tribe, I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. As long as I obeyed my father, he obeyed his father, he abided the rules of his tribe, and he lived happily. But it was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion. And now, after some time, when he became mature, and what he found that this boyhood freedom was just an illusion, that was not real, that was just fiction. When I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, that I began to hunger for it. And when he found that it was not the actual freedom, because his countrymen were not free, he was not a free man to go anywhere, he could not participate in any political discussions, or he could not be a part of any place, he was restricted to go to certain places. Then he found that he was really a bondage and he wanted to get freedom. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself. The transitory freedoms of being able to stay out at night, read what I pleased, and go where I chose. When he was a student, what he wanted, actually, these things were also not allowed. He was not allowed to read what he wanted, he was not allowed to stay out at night. And as a student, he wanted only these things. He wanted that kind of freedom, that he should be allowed to stay at night, out at the night, read what he wanted to read, and where to go he can choose. But later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for basic and honorable freedom of achieving my potential, of earning my keep, of marrying and having a family, the freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life. And in when he was Johannesburg, he wanted basic and honorable freedom. What? For what? To have got the right kind of earnings, right kind of potential jobs, of marrying or having a family, or freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life, that he should not be obstructed, he should not be stopped in any kind of lawful life. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. Then slowly and gradually he realized that he was not free. Even his brothers and sisters were not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. What he said, that it was not that my freedom was curtailed, my freedom was reduced, but the freedom of everyone was reduced. Everyone was feeling a bondage. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my countrymen. And then he joined National African National Congress, and then his own personal freedom, hunger for his own personal freedom, became the greater hunger for the freedom of his countrymen. It was his desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self respect that animated my life, that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one, that drove a law abiding attorney to become a criminal, that turned a family loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life loving man to live like a monk. And it was the desire for the freedom of his people, and because of that, what happened? To live their lives with dignity and respect. He wanted that all his people should live with respect and dignity. And that transformed his life completely. And that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one. That drove a law abiding attorney, he was a lawyer, and law abiding attorney to become a criminal, and he was called criminal. And that also turned a family loving husband into a man without home, and he became a homeless person because he was being hunted by the government there, and that forced a life-loving man to live like a monk, and he was forced to live like a monk. I am no more virtuous or self sacrificing than the next man. I am no more virtuous. I am not very good one or self sacrificing than the next man. I am like every person, self sacrificing. But I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. And but he found that he could not enjoy that freedom, limited freedom, that he was allowed when his people were not free. So he wanted to enjoy that freedom with his all countrymen. Freedom is indivisible. It is not divisible. You cannot divide it. Chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. कि जो मेरे ऊपर जो चेन बंधी हुई थी, that were the chains of all of them. The chains on all of my people were the chains on me. और जो सब लोगों के ऊपर चेन थी वो मेरे ऊपर भी थी. I also felt bound. I knew that oppressor must be liberated just as surely as the oppressed. And what he says, as the oppressor who is oppressed, who is bondage, who is feeling that cruelty or oppression or exploitation, and oppressor is one who is showing cruelty to others, and oppressed is who is facing that oppression, who is facing that cruelty or exploitation. So what he says, that even the person who is showing that cruelty must be liberated, he must also get freedom, because oppressor is also a man who takes away another man's freedom in a prisoner of hatred. तो मैन हु टेक्स अवे अनदर्स मैन फ्रीडम, जो एक आदमी दूसरे आदमी की फ्रीडम को छीन लेता है, he is also a prisoner of, he put him in the prison, but he is also a prisoner of hatred. उसके अंदर एक नफरत पैदा होती रहती है, and he is in prison of hatred. He is locked behind the bars of prejudice and narrow mindedness. और वो भी क्या है कि he is also locked behind the bars of prejudice. Prejudice is dislike. He is also, he dislikes people, and he is also locked just like लॉक बिहाइंड द बार्स, कि उसका ऐसे है कि उसके मन में वो सारे दरवाजे बंद हो जाते हैं. ही फील्स, ही आल्सो डज नॉट फील हैप्पी एट दैट टाइम. एंड प्रेजुडिस एंड नैरो माइंडेडनेस, ही बिकम नैरो माइंडेड. आई एम नॉट ट्रूली फ्री इफ आई एम टेकिंग अवे समवन एल्स फ्रीडम. मैं कभी फ्री नहीं हो सकता अगर मैं किसी और की फ्रीडम ले लेता हूँ तो. जस्ट एज श्योरली एज आई एम नॉट फ्री व्हेन माई फ्रीडम इज टेकन अवे फ्रॉम मी. ऐसे ही है जैसे कि मेरी फ्रीडम अगर मेरे पास नहीं है तो भी कोई फ्रीडम नहीं है, और मैंने मेरी वजह से अगर कोई और फ्री नहीं है तो दैट इज आल्सो नॉट फ्रीडम. द ऑप्रेस्ड एंड द ऑप्रेसर अलाइक आर रॉब्ड ऑफ देयर ह्यूमैनिटी. सो बोथ आर robbed of their humanity. Both are not showing humanity, human behavior. They are not taking that. So this is all about this lesson. This was the last one. All these oral questions are given. These are the oral questions. I will send you the PDF of this chapter also. All these questions you have to try. You have to write down their answers in only in rough notebook. Try these answers. I will send you the answers to be written in fair notebooks also, and assignment will be sent separately, which you have to revert. You have to send the answers of the assignment only, and these questions you have to write in fair notebook. So with that, thank you.